What's up, BookTube? Sandy Golson back here, continuing my series of books that I really enjoy that I think would make really good movies. Coming up next, I have a book that I took a little bit of a chance on, rolling the dice, and I'm glad that I did because it ended up being one of my favorite books of last year. I'll talk about that book, and I think the good movie that it would make next. So as I continue my series of books that I think would make really good movies, I'm going to go to a book that I really liked because it had a little bit of a creepy factor, a mystery, and just a little bit of a hint of supernatural. Now, supernatural is not always my thing, but I know it is for a lot of you. But I thought, you know what? I want to just kind of dip my toe a little bit in the supernatural game just to see if that's something that I might want to pursue a little bit more in the near and distant future. But when I saw this book and the creepy setting, the dual timelines, I thought this is going to be a good one. And the book I'm talking about is The Sundown Motel by Simone St. James. Now, this one is a book that I really quietly enjoyed. I wasn't sure if I was going to really like it. It sounded kind of interesting, but then I thought supernatural, creepy. I'm like, is it really going to be all that good? And it was, and it ended up being a really interesting mystery, again, played along dual timelines, some really engaging characters that I really enjoyed, and there was a creepy factor that you could, a lot of books really strive for that feeling where you feel like you were there, like you could experience the sensations, the fear that the characters are feeling, because of the writing is so intense, it's so good, it's so vivid that it feels like it puts you right there next to the characters and right in the settings of what they are experiencing. And that's what Simone St. James does really well in this book. And so as I started thinking about how this book would look as a movie, and I'm thinking about the dual timelines and a young actors in the older setting, and then of course young actors in the more modern setting, and then trying to have the two perspectives of the mystery eventually merge into one lane was something that I thought was intriguing. I thought would really do well in terms of a movie. And one of the things I started thinking about when I think of dual timeline movies, I go back to The Godfather 2, which did a really magnificent job. It's literally one of the greatest movies of all time, but it does a magnificent job of telling the story through dual timelines that are switching back and forth throughout the movie. And so it really does a good job of telling the story in a just a brilliant way throughout The Godfather 2. So if you have not seen that, I don't know where you've been, but you need to check that out. And so that's kind of the template I imagine for The Sundown Motel, is kind of flipping back and forth between those dueling timelines, but keeping you on a steady track where both timelines are interesting. Because sometimes when I read books with dual timelines, one timeline is a little bit more interesting than the other, and I end up sort of fast forwarding through one of the timelines to get back to the other. Or if I kind of figure out what's going on in the one timeline and the other timeline I'm a little bit sketchy on what's going on, then again I might focus on the timeline where I really know where I don't know what's going on because I'm trying to figure it out. But usually it has to do with which one is just more interesting to me, which one is more appealing to me. But with this one, I thought that both timelines were very interesting. I was probably a little bit more interested in the current timeline more than the past timeline, but the way that they merged together at the end was really good. So when I think of venues, like not necessarily picturing a major motion picture that's hitting theaters across the country. Of course, not many movies are really hitting theaters across the country right now during COVID. We know that is the case. So, but I'm thinking even if it wasn't COVID, I'm thinking this is probably more along the lines of something that maybe you would see on Lifetime, maybe FX, something like that. It just is a really interesting story, and I just think it would lend itself really well to movie storytelling. I could imagine the characters, I can see how they would come to life. I could see the creepy setting, maybe doing something with the film, so the film looks maybe more like 1982, which is one of the timelines of the book, and then there's a current timeline. And so I'm just thinking there are lots of things that could be done and just give you the feel of the early 1980s in comparison, compare and contrast to the setting that you would see in a more modern time. So I definitely enjoyed this book, and I thought, man, even as I was reading, I thought this would make a really good movie. So The Sundown Motel by Simone St. James, one of the books that I've read that I think would make an excellent movie. Let me know what you think in the comment section below. What are some books that you've read that you think would make great movies? Tell me about those books that would make great movies. Tell me why you think that. And if you've read The Sundown Motel by Simone St. James, do you share my opinion that this would make a really good movie? I think it would make a really intriguing movie. The first book that I did in this series that I thought would make a really good movie, of course, was The Last Time I Lied by Riley Sager, one of my favorite books that I've read in the last couple of years. And so I think that one would make a great movie as well. Now I go back to the chalkboard to try to figure out what's the next book I've read that would make a good movie. Now, the good thing about this is that it's going to be, the challenge is not going to be trying to figure out one that would make a good movie. It's trying to pare it down to the next one, because I have so many that I think would make good movies. So stay tuned for the next book I've read that I've enjoyed that I think would make a good movie. Remember to hit the subscribe button if you haven't already, hit the like button for the video, and of course leave your comments below about The Sundown Motel by Simone St. James and how it might seem as a movie if you have read it. And if you have another book that you think would make a good movie, let me know in the comment section below. Thanks, and stay tuned for future videos on this channel. Peace.